everybody, and welcome to our live crochet event. I'm Brenda KB Anderson, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this lovely lace kerchief. Let me show you what it looks like. It's very drapey and lacy and beautiful. And I will be talking to you a little bit about how to make this into something larger, like you could be working up a shawl from the stitch pattern if you like, with just a little bit of extra thought. So there's that extra bonus too. So make sure that you download the free pattern. So it looked like this lace kerchief, and it has all of the directions that you will need to complete this project. I will be going through as much of it as I possibly can with you today, but I can't be showing you every single stitch, every line, but I'll be giving you enough information so that you can figure this out, figure out the remaining parts that I am not going to be able to show you in this 1 hour block today. So. All right, well, I am very excited to be teaching this. I love making crochet lace. It's just so fun, and it's just kind of amazing, really, when you think about how you can just use a couple of stitches that you already know. Like this one uses a chain stitch, single crochet, and a double crochet, and then you can make something that's so different there, than a solid fabric with just those few stitches. So it's just where you're positioning everything and how they all interrelate to each other that makes all those lovely open windows that create such beautiful lace. All right, so first, also I wanted to mention, of course, this is a live event. I'm so glad that you guys are here, and I want to make sure that you guys know you can, go ahead and put any questions you might be having or into the chat, or if there's anything you need me to go over again, if you didn't quite catch something, if you need a little more explanation, please let me know. Also, if you just want to say hi and tell me where you're crocheting from today. Another thing that I love when people put in the chat is if they have suggestions on projects that they would really like to see me do in another live, so in the future. So if you guys have any ideas you've been thinking about, definitely put those in the chat. A lot of my projects come from your ideas, so because I want to make the things that you guys want to make. All right, so let's get started. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the pattern. So in this pattern, everything is written out. All the information that you need is here. So, the usual things like the finished size, the materials, which we'll go over in just a minute, and all the directions, any special stitches, there's a little decrease. So all that information is in here, so you'll be able to complete this project. But I do want to point out, this is a very long pattern. See, if you look here, it goes on for pages. So if you download this and you look at it and you think, I'm overwhelmed, just too many words, you're not alone. I have a hard time sticking with patterns that are very lengthy because my brain starts to drift as I'm reading through and I lose my place easily. So I turn to stitch diagrams, and I have completely charted this whole kerchief out. So you can start on one page and then work your way to the next page. Let me just show you how this works. So we're going to be starting here on the chart, and I'm going to be teaching from the chart, and we're going to be working our way up here, and then once you get to the top, you will continue on with the decrease section of the chart. And I'll be explaining that as I go along. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that, if you find reading crochet patterns a little bit overwhelming with all those paragraphs in there, I don't want you to be worried about it. What we're doing isn't difficult, it's just hard to explain in a written pattern exactly what you're doing without using a lot of words. So, unless of course you use a chart, which is what I'm going to be teaching you from today. All right, and if you've never worked from a chart before and you're thinking, okay, I don't know about this chart thing, I'm going to be explaining the charts to you, and by watching what I'm doing and seeing how it relates to the chart, I really think that this it will be a really good lesson for you, because maybe you'll love working from charts too, and then you'll have that extra skill under your belt so you can make all kinds of things. All right, so you're going to be needing some yarn, of course, and for this project I used this yarn it's a fingering weight. Let me just check here this is all the brand, everything is all listed in your pattern, so if you download that you can see exactly what I'm using. But this is a fingering weight yarn. You only need about 115 yards of it, and I am using something that's a blend between silk and something called Cupro, which I had actually never heard of before I got a sample of this yarn. And so I looked it up. And cupro is a rayon. It's a type of rayon that is made from byproducts of producing cotton. So that's kind of cool. They get to actually use something that would otherwise be thrown out. So that's in this yarn. And I want to tell you, it's a very slippery yarn. It's got a really pretty sheen to it, and it has so much drape, which is why I picked it. I was curious about this yarn, and I thought, oh, this will be a kind of a fun little project. I wanted to try it out on something kind of small and something that I wanted to have lots and lots of drape, which was, I mean, look at it. Look at this. Okay, so anyway, if you are looking to substitute yarns, you can absolutely substitute with something else. You could substitute with a cotton yarn, you could substitute with wool yarn, you could substitute with acrylic, really almost anything. But it is going to change the way that this drapes and feels and appears. So, make sure you do a little gauge swatch and then look at it and see if you like how the fabric feels if you're substituting with another yarn. Another little note I wanted to tell you about this yarn, since it has so much drape and it's pretty slippery, if you are very new to crocheting and you want to try out lace for the very first time, you may think about using something like a yarn that you're used to working with instead of this. There's really not much give to this. It's pretty, there's no elasticity, and it's very slippery. So you may find it a little bit trickier to work with. The other thing is if you have very slippery hair and you're planning on wearing this, in your hair instead of tied around your neck, which of course, you can do either with the kerchief. If you're planning on wearing it in your hair, you may want to think about substituting for a yarn that's not quite as slippery. So I just want to give you guys that little heads up about the yarn, since I've never used this before, and I think it's probably going to be new to some of you too. All right, and Shelby is saying she loves this and she's going to make one for the 4th. Awesome. That'll be perfect. And Crystal says, hi from San Diego. Love this right now, crocheting a summer raffia hat. This will be good for the future program. Oh, awesome. Yes. Summer raffia hat. It's like the perfect time to make that. All right. Okay. So now that we've talked about the yarn, let's talk a little bit about the hook. I am using a D hook, which is a 3.25 millimeter hook, but you will use whatever hook you need to in order to create a fabric that's the same size as mine. So that's why you check your gauge as you're working. Actually, in this project, if you guys have seen my lives before, you know that I'm always trying to get out of doing a gauge swatch because I don't like doing it. And I know a lot of other people feel the same way about gauge swatches, so sometimes I try and cheat and make part of the project your gauge swatch. So in this case, you're going to be working up a little section of this project. You're just going to start working from the directions, and you're going to work to a certain row, and then you're going to measure across, and you're going to measure down, and then you're going to compare it to my measurements. So I do put a little section in there. In the gauge section, I do mention what size it is before I blocked it. And so you can see before I blocked my piece, you can see how kind of wavy and wrinkly, and you can't really see the lace pattern very well here. This is what it looks like when you're stitching it up. And then when you block it, it will look much more open and you can actually see the lace pattern. So I want to make sure that you're checking your gauge after it's been blocked, in case you are planning on stretching that out a lot. I didn't stretch mine very much. I just got it wet and laid it out. I stretched it out a very small amount, probably like this much, just like maybe it grew about 1/8 of an inch in each direction. It was just a tiny amount. But I know that there is that variable, and I know lots of people will be substituting yarn, so I just want to make sure you're checking your gauge after it has, like you're going to block that little section, and then you can continue. If, however, you're like, yeah, Brenda, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to look at it, press it down. It's probably a close enough idea to what your gauge is. And as you're working on this kerchief, I will let you know later on in the project, in the demonstration today, how to make your kerchief a different size. So just in case you're finding your kerchief is growing a little faster than you thought it would be, I do have a solution for that. All right. Let's do some actual crocheting here. So all you really need is the yarn and your hook. But another thing, you may have seen this, I actually have this chart keeper thing. This is absolutely not something that you need to have at all, of course. I love it though because it helps me keep my place in a big chart. You can use the magnets. These are little magnetic pieces and they stick to the board that my paper is on, and I move them up with each row that I complete. So if you're using something like this, or even if you just have Post-it notes or a piece of cardboard you can lay on top or something you can put on your chart, you want to cover up what's in the future on your chart, and you want to only see where you've been. So you want to see, like if you're working on row 1, you would cover up right here so you're not distracted by what's going on up here and you're only looking at this. When you complete that, you'll move it up. You can move it up every row, and that helps you keep your place. It's good to see where you've been so you know how your stitches all interconnect, but it can be confusing if you see what comes next, because sometimes you might jump to the wrong row. So that's how I like to use my chart, and I will be referring to this as I'm teaching today. So, all right, so we are going to begin by working 2 chains, and then we're going to work a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So we'll just make ourselves a little slip knot, just like this. And then we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and then we're going to work a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. And I'm going to work that into the bottom of the chain. You can work it into the chain however you like. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to roll that over, and I'm just going to work underneath that back bump. I'm just going to slide my hook underneath there, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2. Now there's our first stitch, just a little single crochet there. That was row 1. See, look, we're already done with a row. All right, so now we're going to be working on row 2, which is right here. So we're going to start with the turning chain, which is a chain 3, and then we're going to work 3 double crochets into our single crochet. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we turn our work like we're turning a teeny tiny little page in a book, like this. And now I'm looking at the back side of that single crochet that I just made. Then we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. There is our first double crochet, and we're going to do 2 more. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then 1 more. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so we've made it past row 2, and we're going to work on row 3. That begins with a beginning chain of 3, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets into that very first stitch. So you can see in this chart, if you've never looked at a chart before, I should explain. Over here is the key. This is going to tell you what stitch is over here in the chart. So these taller stitches here, they all have a little line on the top and a line in the middle. Those are double crochet stitches. You can see that right here. And they are just kind of radiating out from the center there. They're all kind of going in the same place. So on this next row, and actually they should be pointing a little bit more at this single crochet. They should be angled a little bit over. I should actually fix that on the chart a little bit to make it a little bit more obvious. As you are working on this chart though, I'm going to tell you, we work into those turning chains a lot to keep that edge nice and smooth. So just know if you can't tell where they're pointing at, they're going to be pointing at those turning chains. So these 3 double crochets are worked into this turning chain, etc. But I'll be going through that as we're working our way up the chart. I just wanted to let you know, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell where the stitches are pointing at. So sometimes you'll need to just refer back to the written words if you're not exactly sure, but I'll be trying to explain all that to you as we go through the chart. So you shouldn't need to worry too much about that. Okay, so we've just completed row number 2. Now we're going to start row number 3. We do 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn our work just like that. And then we're going to do 2 double crochets into that first double, that was the last double crochet we made on the last row. So into the first stitch, we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Here's our chain 3 right there. And then we're going to do a double crochet into the top of that chain 3 turning chain there. So we're going to go all the way over to the side. There's the top of our turning chain. So we're going to yarn over, insert into that very top chain of the chain 3. Yarn over, pull up loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so now we're going to be working on row 4. So in this row, this turning chain that I'm making does not count as a stitch. So we're just going to make 1 chain and turn, and then we're going to make a single crochet into this first stitch. And what I mean by it doesn't count as a stitch is on the next row, we don't work into that turning chain. So in this pattern, if you're making a chain 1 turning chain, that's not going to count as a stitch. It's not going to count as a single crochet. We're just using that to get up to the next row. But if you're making a longer turning chain, like a chain 3 or a chain 4 or something like that, that is going to count as a stitch. So that means we are going to be working into the top of that turning chain. All right, so we're going to work a single crochet into the top of that last double crochet we made in the last row. So there's our single crochet. And then we're going to do a single crochet into this chain space. So we're going to do a single crochet right here into the chain space. And I'm just going to point this out also in our chart. When you see a single crochet, which is this little plus symbol, and it's above a chain, so there's lots of chain 3s in this pattern that make those nice little windows. When you see a single crochet kind of floating above those chain 3s, that means you're working into the chain space. You're not actually working into a stitch, you're working into the chain space. So you're going to insert your hook below that chain to make the stitch. All right, so we've made our first 2 single crochets, and then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work 3 double crochets into that chain 3 turning chain from the last row. Whoops, I gotta grab 2 loops. If you only grab 1 loop with your hook, it can kind of stretch that out. So it's always better to have your hook underneath both loops there. So there's the first double crochet, the second, and the third. So that's the end of row 4. And row 5, we start over here, we make a chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, turn our work. Then we're going to do 2 double crochets into the first stitch. 1 and 2. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into this chain space. And then there's 2 more single crochets each worked into the single crochet from below, or from the working row, I should say. So we're going to insert our hook into this chain space right here and make a single crochet. And then we're going to do 2 more single crochets, 1 and 2. Okay, and that is row 5. We're going to chain 1 and turn for row 6. So we're going to do 2 single crochets. We're skipping that 3rd single crochet, and then we're going to chain 3 and then work 3 double crochets into the chain space. I'll stop there and then I'll explain the rest. So we will do a single crochet here and a single crochet right next door. So 2 in a row. We're skipping that 3rd single crochet, which is between my thumbs here, and then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, oops, I think I missed that one, 2 and 3. And then we're going to do 3 double crochets into the chain space. So that would be 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to do 3 double crochets into the top of that turning chain. So we'll chain 1, skipping all those double crochets. We're going to work into the top of the turning chain, which is right here by my thumb. So we're going to work 3 double crochets into that top chain there. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's what it looks like so far. And we're moving on to row 7. C. Meyer is saying, I like the board. What a pretty pattern. I'm guessing you're talking about my chart board here. Yeah, it's got all these cute little crochet hooks on it. Isn't that fun? All right. So let's see. We're working on row 7. So we're going to start with a chain 4, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn our work. And then we're going to do 2 double crochets in that first stitch. So you may have noticed that on the edge of our piece where we're doing these increases, which is where right along this edge here where we're making the extra stitches, we are making turning chains that are 4 chains high. And on this edge, you know, it varies depending on the stitch that we're doing. Sometimes we make 1 chain, it doesn't count as a stitch. But when we do make a taller turning chain, it's only 3 chains high, okay? So there are a couple of things about this chart. If you just really take a look at it and look at what's going on, you know, every time you're at this edge, you can expect to be making, you know, on your way across, you'll be making 3 double crochets into the turning chain. And then on your way in the opposite direction, you're going to start out with the 4 chain turning chain and then work your way across. So there are just some things about, you know, looking at a chart that can help you visualize what to do next and know how to read your stitches and know what to expect, so that it isn't quite so much work looking at every single stitch. You might just start to kind of expect to know, you know, what you're doing on that next row, or at least how to start it out. You'll start to see a pattern. Okay, we're going to chain 3, then we're going to make a double crochet into the chain space, which is right here. We'll stop there. So we'll do a chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to do a double crochet into that chain space, which is right here. There's our double crochet. Then we're going to do another chain 3, 1, 2, 3, which is right here. And then we're going to do 3 double crochets into this chain space. So there's our chain space right there. And we're going to do 1, 2, and 3 double crochets, and then we'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we'll finish up row 7 with a double crochet in that very last single crochet or the first single crochet we made on the last row, but the last single crochet as we're working across this row here. So we're going to yarn over, and this is where we're inserting our hook. And we're making that double crochet right on the edge there. All right, so now we're at row number 8. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to turn our work. And then we're going to do 3 double crochets in this first chain loop. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, which is right here. And then we're going to work a single crochet into this chain 3 space, then a single crochet into the top of the double crochet, then another single crochet into this next chain 3 space. So if you just take a look at your work, you can locate that double crochet with a chain space on either side. So you're going to put a single crochet in this first chain space you come to. And then you're going to do a single crochet in the top of the double crochet, which is right there. And then you're going to do a single crochet in the next chain space right there. And then we will chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to finish with 3 double crochets into the top of that turning chain, all the way on the end there. 1, 2, and 3. All right, so we have ended row 8. We're going to start with row 9. And then I'll do a couple more rows to finish up, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the chart and how I've basically demonstrated most of what you need to know to be able to finish all of this increase section. It might not seem like it yet, but we're going to kind of break down the chart and take a closer look at that so you kind of understand how it works and how the stitches all work together. Okay, so we're on row number 9, so we chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, turn our work, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets in the first stitch. 1, 2, then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're right here in the chart. And then we're going to do a single crochet into the chain space, and then 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 single crochets, and then another single crochet into the following chain space. All right, so if we take a look at our work, we can see, it might be a little bit hard to see, But here are our 3 single crochet stitches right here, right across here. It's starting to be like a little solid section right there. So we're going to work a single crochet here, and then 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, and then a single crochet here. So here's our first of those 5 single crochets. There's 1. And now we're going to do a single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to do a single crochet into the next chain space right there. All right, so we did a total of 5 single crochets. Then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. We are right here, and then we're going to end with 2 double crochets into the top of that chain 3 turning chain. So that's right over here. We're going to do 2 double crochets right there. 1 and 2. There we go. All right. I'm getting some really nice compliments from you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Janet. She's saying it's very pretty. She can't wait to get started on it. And she's saying hi from Lincoln, Nebraska. Hi. And Michelle is saying hi from North Carolina. She's joining late, but she's going to download the pattern. Awesome. Yep. You can always go back and watch these lives later. You know, if there's ever anything that you missed, they're available to watch later, always. So, all right. So now we have just completed row number 9. And we're going to work on row number 11. So we are beginning, row number 10. Sorry, I just saw the 11 and I got confused. Row number 10, so we're going to chain 3, and then we're going to do 3 double crochets into that first chain 3 space that we come to. So we're going to do our 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, turn our work. Here's row number 10. 3 double crochets into that first chain space, 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is where we are in the chart. We're chaining these 3. Then we're going to do 3 single crochets into the middle of those 5 single crochets. Okay, so you can see we're skipping the first one and skipping the last one, but we're placing 3 single crochets into the center 3 of those previous 5 from the row before. So if we just take a look at our work, between my thumbs, those are the 5 stitches. So we're skipping that first one, and then we're going to work a single crochet here. Whoops. Single crochet, and another single crochet. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work 3 double crochets into this chain 3 space. So we'll do that. Here's our chain 3 space right there. So we're going to work 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to end with 3 double crochets into the top of that chain 4 turning chain. So, whoops, I think I chained 1 there. So, yep, chain 1, and then we're going to do those 3 double crochets into the top of that chain 4 turning chain at the end. 1, 2, 3. All right, so this is what we have so far. Actually, I'll chain and turn so you can compare it to the chart. We're going to chain 4 for the beginning of row 11. We chain 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to turn our work, and you can see, I'll put it right over here next to where our chart is. We're working on row 11 here. You can see what I'm creating here is, you know, the same as this picture right here, and you're going to start to be able to see this sort of diamond shape that comes out here. This is the center right there. Let me show you what it looks like on the blocked piece. The way that I think about this is, let's see, I'm gonna put it this way. Okay, the way that I think about this is I see all these diamond shapes. Let me stretch it out a little bit more so you can see them better on the table there. So I think about, you know, when I look at the lace, how I keep track is I'm trying to figure out where I am in relation to all these diamonds working across. And you can see, if you look at this, the fabric, sometimes it's like 2 full diamonds. There's one there, and there's one there, and they fit all the way across. And sometimes it's more like 2.5, so, or like a half diamond, I should say. It's not always 2. It's like a full, an even amount, what am I trying to say? A full diamonds plus a half a diamond. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so here we have like a full diamond right here, and then here's another one right here. And then if you look over here, there's half of a diamond right here, right there. So that's how when I look at a pattern, my eye tries to figure out and kind of break it up into shapes that I recognize, so I can sort of help myself keep track of where I'm at, you know, when I'm looking back and forth between my work and my chart. It really helps me to see these diamonds. So here, you know, here's what I was pointing at just a second ago on my piece. There's a full diamond right there. There's another one right there. And here's this half diamond here. So that, you know, just being able to see that in your work, and I know it's a little bit hard before you block it to see, but you can kind of stretch it out. And when it's, you know, when you're not looking at it on a monitor, when you're looking at it, when you're creating it in your lap, it will be easier to see, to recognize where those shapes are. All right, so we are working on row 11. We've done our turning chain, and we're going to do 2 double crochets into that very first stitch. So here's a double crochet and another double crochet to that first stitch, and then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to make a, right here, here's where we're at, we're going to make a double crochet into that chain 1 space. So here's our chain 1 space. Going to insert our hook there, make that double crochet like that. Then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work 3 double crochets into the next chain 3 space, which is right here. 1, 2, 3. Then we'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to make 1 double crochet into the center stitch of those 3 single crochet stitches. So if you skip the first single crochet, work a double crochet into that middle one there. So you can see here's our 3 single crochets right here. 1, 2, 3. And so we're going to work right into that middle one. We're going to create a double crochet right there. There's our double crochet. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and do 3 double crochets into the next chain 3 space. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to end with a double crochet in the top of this turning chain right here. So there's our double crochet to finish that up with. So this is the end of, we've just completed row 11. And you can see, let's see, we'll do one more row, and then I'll talk a little bit about how to finish up the rest of this. We'll do row number 12. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. And then we're going to make a single crochet into that top of that double crochet that we made at the end of the last row. And then we are going to do another single crochet into this chain space right here. Okay, so we have 2 single crochets so far. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to do a set of 3 double crochets right here into that next chain 3 space, and then a chain 1 and another set of 3 double crochets into the next chain 3 space. Okay, so here's the next 2 chain spaces that I'm talking about. We're going to do 3 double crochets here, chain 1, and 3 double crochets here. So 1, 2, 3, and then we chain 1, and then we do 3 more here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we are going to continue working across. We'll do a chain 3, and then 3 more single crochets. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then when we place those 3 single crochets, we're going to place 1 single crochet here in this chain space, and then 1 single crochet goes into the top of the double crochet. So this is probably starting to look a little familiar or if it isn't, don't worry, but it will as you're working on it, because we are actually doing a repeat of something we've already done. So we've got a single crochet into that chain space, single crochet into the double crochet, single crochet into the next chain space, and then we're going to finish out by making a chain 3 and 3 double crochets into the top of that turning chain. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to add 3 double crochets to the top of that turning chain there. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I'll flip it this way so it looks more like my chart. So we have just finished up row number 12, and you can kind of see that diamond shape there. That's a full diamond shape right there. There's a half a one down here. As you can see from the chart, there's like a little half a diamond here and then a full diamond here. And I just want to show you, we've actually already learned, you know, all the stitches and the placements that you need to know to be able to work all the way up to the halfway point of your kerchief. So as you can see from the chart, and we talked a little bit about this, sometimes when you're looking at, you're looking across the chart, if you can spot those diamonds, you know, it's a whole diamond across. So here's one diamond, here's another diamond, but the rows in between, so they're kind of shingled together. I shouldn't say rows because it's not just a row, but the motif, you know, following that, here we have a whole diamond here, there's a whole diamond there, and then we end with that half a diamond shape here. So every so often, your stitch pattern, you know, is repeating. Every time you come across here, you're adding all those extra stitches. You're always going to be working either, you know, that chain 4 and then 2 double crochets into that first double crochet, or at the end of the following row, you're going to just be placing 3 double crochets into the top of that turning chain. So that's going to continue all the way up here, and you're creating all those increases to be adding more repeats of these diamonds across. So as you're working, you're going to start to become like familiar when you're working across, when you see, like, for example, a section of these 5 single crochet, you know on the next row you're going to be doing 3, because you do 3 single crochets, then 5, then 3. And that is the same no matter whether you're over here, over here, over here. So you're just going to start to kind of recognize where to put those stitches and what stitches will, you know, you need to add on the next row. But of course, you can be just, you know, reading line from the chart or from the pattern. If that's easier for you, that's fine. I just wanted to point a few things out because I know that this can be a little bit overwhelming. It's a very big chart. The pattern is very long, but really when you break it down, you're doing similar things. You know, you're making these diamond shapes all over the whole kerchief, really. That's all you're really learning how to do. So I just wanted to kind of break that down a little bit and make a little bit more sense. So as you're working on this, if you are getting to the halfway point in your kerchief and you're thinking, oh no, this is getting too big. This is going to be too big to go around my head, or too big, you know, I just don't want it to be this big. You can stop making your increases on a row that looks like row number 33. So here we have row number 33. There's a full diamond here, here, and here. You could stop it here and have it be, you know, at this point, instead of 33 is your last increase row, and then we're going to start decreasing right here. That's what this is. We'll get to that in a minute. But you can just sort of find the pattern in this chart and stop after row 24. Or if you wanted to, you could stop after you work row 29 as well and start decreasing at that point. If you choose to do that, you can see there's just half a diamond here, but there was a whole diamond here where you're actually going to be starting your decreases. The ending of your stitches is going to be a little bit different because you are going to be ending, you know, on row 30. As you're working across, you're going to be beginning, I should say, with those 2 single crochet. Whereas, you know, if you're following the pattern closely and working as many repeats as I am, then you're going to be starting with that chain 3 and the 3 double crochets. But just know you can start your decreases here if you want to. So you'll just work across here following the chart, and then you can skip to looking at the chart here for how you do your decreases. Really, you just need to understand like the relationship between how your stitches like where they're spaced around each other. You know, if you've got 5 single crochets, you're going to work 3 single crochets here. You're always going to be working into those chain 3 spaces in the same way. I just wanted to kind of give you those tools in case you're planning on modifying this pattern, making it a little smaller, or if you want to just keep on going and increasing, you can just keep making your increases until you make basically half a shawl, and then you can start making your decreases and make the other half a shawl if you want to turn this project into a shawl. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, that's so funny. I just looked and Amy is saying, can this pattern be expanded to a shawl size? Yes. So I guess I just answered that question. I hope I was clear enough about that. But yes, you can just keep going, continuing your increases until you're halfway done with your shawl. Like for example, if you're looking at this and you measure from here to here on your shawl and you're like, that's about halfway across the whole shawl. Okay, and then you can start doing your decreases, which will be along this edge here. Alrighty, so speaking of that, let me show you what it looks like when you've reached row number 33. So here is our halfway point. Let me pull this around here. All right, so we have worked across row number 33, which is right here. That was the last row. This is what your piece should look like. Okay, it's a little bit wrinkly because it has not been blocked yet. Just going to scoot this over so you guys can see a little bit. So that's our halfway point on our kerchief, and then we are going to start working the decreases. So because we increased along this edge, we are going to start decreasing along the same edge. So we're going to be angling it in this direction. Okay, so we're going to begin by working row number 34, which is the very top of our increase chart, or at this point you can switch out your chart and put in your decrease chart, because I did make a note of this on your decrease chart. Row number 33 and row number 34 appear on your increase chart as well as on your decrease chart. And the reason I did that was just, so you could see what comes before and what comes after. So you can see here row number 33, and then there's row number 34. So you only want to work row 33 and 34 one time. You don't want to work it twice by accident. That's why I put this little note here. So if you're working along and you're working on your increase chart and you actually work this 34 from this chart, and then you begin on here, you're going to start with row number 35, which is up here, okay? So we have worked through row number 33, and then we're going to start on row number 34. Just right here under that bar. We're going to chain 3. So 1, whoops, split my yarn there. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then we are going to turn our work. We're going to work 3 double crochets into that first chain 3 space. So all of this is exactly the same. We're not doing anything that we haven't already done until we get to over here and we do our little decrease. Okay, so all this is the same stitch pattern that we've been working in. We just have more repeats of it because we've been increasing. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work 3 single crochets. So we skip the first of those 5, and we're going to work a single crochet here, here, and here. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, oops, 2, 3, and then we're going to work 3 double crochets into the next chain space, chain 1, 3 double crochets into the next chain space as well. So we've got 1, 2, and 3, chain 1, and then skip to the next chain 3 space, and we're going to do 3 double crochets here as well. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're doing a repeat here. So we're doing those 3 single crochets centered, in the 5 single crochets from the previous row. So there's our 3rd single crochet. We chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we've gotten to the next 2 chain 3 windows. So we're going to do 3 double crochets here, 1, 2, 3, and then a chain 1, and then 3 double crochets into the next chain 3 space, 1, 2, 3, and then a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're repeating again. So here's our 5 single crochet. We're going to do 3 single crochets right centered in amongst those. So we're skipping that first single crochet and working 3 more single crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Then we chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochets, 1, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Here's those 3 single crochets again. You guys are probably seeing the pattern here. We're working those 3 double crochets, or sorry, did I say double crochets? I mean single crochets, I'm sorry. 3 single crochets centered in those 5 single crochets from the previous row, okay? And then we're gonna chain 3, 1, 2, 3. This is where we are at on the chart. And we've chained our 3, and now we're gonna do 3 double crochets, a double crochet 3 together at the very end, okay? And we're gonna work 1 leg into each of those 2 double crochets, and then the last leg will be into the top of that turning chain. So we've chained our 3, so we're going to do this double crochet, or the double crochet 3 together, decrease, over these 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. So to do the decrease, we'll yarn over, insert into that first double crochet, yarn over, pull up loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Then we're going to yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, insert into the top of that turning chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Now we should have 4 loops on our hook. Then we'll yarn over and pull through all 4. So what that's going to do is it's going to make those 3 stitches down into 1. So we're creating the very tip of that kerchief there. All right. So now we are moving on to row number 35. So we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because we're on that increasing and decreasing side, we are always going to be doing our turning chains with 4. And then we're going to turn our work. And then we're going to place another double crochet 3 together decrease. So the first leg will go into the top of the decrease from the previous row. And then the next 2 legs are going to go into that chain space. So this is what that looks like. You'll yarn over, insert into the top of that stitch you just made, that decrease stitch from the previous row, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Now we're going to make the next 2 legs into this chain space. So we'll yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. And we'll repeat that. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. And now we're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on the hook. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, right here. And then we're going to do a double crochet into the center of those 3 single crochets from the previous row. So there's our single crochets. Here's the center one. We're making that double crochet right there. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to create 3 double crochets into the next chain 3 space. 1, 2, 3. And we'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And we'll make a double crochet into this chain 1 space right here, which is right there. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do 3 double crochets into the next chain 3 space. 1, 2, 3. chain 3. So this whole section, what I'm working on now, this is something that you will have repeated over and over. There's nothing new happening here. This is, you know, just part of the stitch pattern that we've been working on. Really the only place that you see a change happen, once you've kind of established that stitch pattern in your mind, the only place where you're going to see a difference in what you're working on is along this edge here. So before we were doing increases and now we're doing decreases. All right, so you can see here we've done 2 rows of the decreases here and it's starting to make that point. It's going to keep angling in this direction. And I just want to show you, you know, what to expect on this edge. So when you're doing your decreases, we've already worked across row 34. We did that first decrease, and the beginning of row 35 has that decrease. Every single, you know, row is going to have that double crochet 3 together. You can see they're all stacked up here. So that's how we get that nice decrease line. So when you get to row number 36, you're going to be placing the first 2 legs of your decrease in that chain space, and then you're going to be placing the last leg of your decrease into this turning chain right here. Okay, so you're skipping, you're not even working into the decrease, it's from the previous row. You're working those 2 legs into this chain space, and then the 3rd leg into the top of your turning chain. And when you work across in row 37, you're going to, you know, do your 4 chains. The first leg of your decrease will be in the decrease stitch you just made, and then the next 2 legs will be in the chain space right here. On the following row, you're going to be working the first 2 legs of your decrease because you're working across in this direction. So this one and this one into the chain space, and the last leg goes into your turning chain. So basically what you want to look for here is you're always going to be putting a leg of your decrease into your turning chain. You know, when you're coming to the decrease at the end of your row, that last leg of your decrease will always go into that turning chain. Okay, and then the beginning of your decrease will go into, you know, what comes before it. So it's either going to be a chain 3 space where those 2, sorry, we're right here. The chain 3 space, those 2 legs are going into the chain 3 space. You're not working into the decrease, but your last leg will be into the top of the turning chain right here. If you are beginning your decrease, if you're working your decrease at the beginning of a row, you're going to be making your turning chain, and then you are going to work the first of the decrease. The first leg of your decrease will go into the decrease stitch that you just made at the end of the last row, and the next 2 legs are going to go into a chain space right there. Okay? So that's, you know, so that way every time you go back and forth, you know you're always making that double crochet 3 together decrease. You always have, if you're working it at the end of a row, you always have to have that last leg into your turning chain. If you're working it at the beginning of the row, the first leg will go into your decrease stitch, and then the next legs will go into some kind of, you know, either a chain 1 space or a chain 3 space. Okay? All right, so that way you're just going to continue working all the way across until you've decreased to basically nothing. And this is what your piece will look like. I know it's a little bit hard to see the lace pattern here. I'll stretch it out a little for you so you can see like that. And you know, you might be thinking, well, do we have to stretch it that much when we block it? When you block it, you may stretch it just a little, but just the blocking of it will flatten everything out, and you will actually be able to see your lacy stitch pattern. It just opens up those windows. Right now we're seeing lots of bumps and you know, shadows that are happening that are kind of obscuring the lovely lace pattern. So this project really does benefit a lot from blocking. All right, so here is where we have ended. So these were all the increases. These are all the decreases. We've ended here. Let's see, I think we are on, let me check. I think I left one more row to do. Are we on 64? Yeah. So we are on row number 64, which is way up here in the corner. We've already worked our turning chain. So we're going to turn our work. And then we are going to work we're going to work a double crochet 3 together, working the first 2 legs of that decrease into that chain space. So there's the first leg, there's the second leg, And then the third leg is actually going to go into the top of the turning chain right here. All right, to finish that off, and then we'll pull through all 4 loops. This is the same decrease we've been doing all along here, and we've ended at this tip of the kerchief. And in order to do the ties, so I kind of worked those into, oh, it looks like we maybe have a couple more questions. Let me just check in here. All righty. Any suggestion on sizing for a 6-year-old girl? Well, it depends on the girl, but I know my kids are around that age, and this fits her perfectly just as is. It just depends on the size of the head. It should probably fit, but you know, some kids might have a smaller head. And you could, in that case, you could just do one less repeat. You could stop. So it would be better to make the kerchief smaller because you have those ties, and it will, you know, you can always make it longer on your head. So if she's going to be using this in her hair, if the ties are long enough, you know, what am I trying to say? The ties make this very adjustable. However, you can't make the kerchief smaller, really. So it's better to err on the side of the kerchief being smaller, and then you kind of have the ties extending a little away from each other in the back instead of like tying the corners. Here, let me just show you what I mean. So if you're tying this around someone's head, the smallest you can make it really is to tie it all the way so that the tips are together, right? So, and this is like I think it's about a 19-inch circumference. I'm trying to remember, let me check. Let's see. Yep, so it's 19 inches around here, which will probably fit a 6-year-old. But if you are worried about it, or you just want to err on the side of caution, then you could do one less repeat. So you could stop doing your increases here at row number 29. You'll finish that one up, work across, and then on row 30, that's when you're going to add this, start with this decrease right here. Okay, so when you're working back on 30, and that will give you a little bit smaller of the distance across. All right. So that was for you, Michelle. I hope that made sense. All right, so now that we have ended at this tip here, so in order to add the ties to it, what we'll do, here, I'll just check my directions here to make sure I'm telling you the right amount. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay. So when you've reached the very end of your chart, then you're going to start on the ties. So what you do is you just continue, you don't need to fasten off or anything, you're just going to chain 61 stitches. I'm not going to chain 61 because that's going to take too long. I'm just going to chain maybe 6. So we'll just chain, that seems so short, I'll just chain a couple extra. So you're going to chain 61 chains, try to make those just a little bit loose because you've got to work back into them. And then we're going to make a slip stitch into the bottom of each of those chains. So what that means is you're going to roll it over so you see those horizontal dashes on the back of your work. And you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and pull through the loop on your hook. And if you wanted a wider, like a thicker tie than what I made, you could certainly do single crochets instead of slip stitches here. So I'm just working a slip stitch here into each of those chains that we just made, working into the bottom. I just liked how they looked. They looked a little more like a cord. You know, if you just do a slip stitch instead of a single crochet, makes it nice. It looks the same on both edges. It's just a really neat and tidy way to make a little tie end here. Just like that. So of course your tie end will be much longer than this. This is just to kind of demonstrate how to do it. So that's what that'll look, well, this is really what it'll look like. You know, it'll be a nice long tie end. And then you've made your way back to the edge of your kerchief. And then you're going to continue along the bottom sides of this triangle. So this, what I mean by the bottom sides, if you put the triangle this way, this is a bottom side, this is a bottom side to me. So you're just going to continue working your way around this triangle. So you're going to create a little edging with single crochet. And I do tell you, you know, that I want you to put 66 single crochets across this edge. However, having said that, you don't really need to count them. You can just work single crochet along, and if it's starting to kind of ruffle like this, that means you're putting too many stitches. And if it's starting to kind of pull in on your kerchief, then you don't have enough. You need to add some more or go up a hook size or something like that. But basically you just want to keep your eye on it and make sure as you're single crocheting across that it's not distorting the edge of your work. And if you've never worked single crochet, or if you've never worked an edging into the ends of your rows before, if you've only actually worked into your stitches, there isn't a very specific space you're supposed to put your hook. You just need to kind of look at it, put it somewhere kind of close to the edge. So we'll just do a single crochet here. And if it makes a big hole, you can always put it into a tighter space. If you don't like how it looks, I think that's going to be just fine. But here's a tighter space right here. If you were concerned about that hole, I think it would have blocked out just fine. But if you're getting large gaps because of where you're putting your stitches, it's because you're putting your hook into kind of a looser area, or an area where there is already a hole. See, there's a little bit, it's creating a little bit less of a hole there because I put my hook through a tighter space. So, you know, it isn't like you're supposed to be putting your hook into a certain spot into each stitch. You're just working along that edge, just placing your hook a little ways in. If you put it too far in, it's going to look funny. If you don't catch at least 2 loops, if you're just catching 1 loop, it might stretch it out and you might get a gap there. But really just keep in mind when you block this, it's going to help even things out. It'll even out your edge. It'll even out any of, like, you know, if you feel like there's a little bit too much of a hole, like right here, there's a little bit bigger gap here. That's just going to even out in the blocking, and I'm not even going to worry about it. But basically you're just trying to create a nice, neat edging along the edge of your kerchief. So you're going to work your single crochet all the way to the tip, and then you are going to turn your work, or just rotate your work, I should say, and then you're going to work the same amount of single crochets, which is, I think, 66 across the next edge. And then when you get to the other edge, you're going to create a tie in exactly the same way as we made the first one. So you'll chain out your 61 chains, and then you're going to slip stitch your way back to the tip, and then you will rotate again, and then you will continue working all the way across the top edge of your piece to finish it off. And so, let's see, I just wanted to check and make sure. Okay, I didn't miss anything. Yep, so, and then that's it. So the last thing that you're going to be doing is blocking. So we're just going to talk about that for a minute. So if you have any lingering questions, definitely let me know. And then I'll try and get those answered for you after I talk about blocking. So if you've never blocked anything before, this is a good time to start. If you make this project, it really benefits a lot from blocking. I always talk about blocking at the end of all my projects, and I think, you know, some people may choose not to block their projects, and that's perfectly fine. Of course, I'm not going to come and knock on your door and check to see if you blocked your kerchief. But, you know, as far as things go, when you're blocking things, it really helps make your stitches like very neat and tidy, and it evens out things. But especially for lace, it makes a big difference. If you're not going to block, if you're only going to block like one type of project, make that your lace projects, okay? Because you can see here, we've got an example of blocked and not blocked. Okay, let me try to get them both so you can see from above. Now you can see there is a humongous difference, right? This, you can see the lace stitch pattern here, especially like if I pick it up and you look at that. I mean, look at those beautiful windows in there, okay? You can definitely see those diamonds. If I pick this up and show it to you, you can see them a little bit, but it's very obscured because all our stitches are kind of, you know, textural. They're going up and down and weaving this way and that, and it casts shadows, and it's just not pulling very straight, so we're not getting those nice crisp windows. So in order to block something like this, if you chose to use the same yarn that I'm using, I very much recommend wet blocking instead of steam blocking. I have heard that steam blocking may not be good for cupro in general, like high heat isn't good for that type of fiber. So definitely go with the wet blocking. If you use something like an acrylic, acrylic yarn. I love steam blocking acrylics because it seems to give it so much more drape, and it just really responds so much better to the steam as opposed to just getting it wet. Wetting acrylic and letting it dry, it does help some, but it's not a very drastic difference, really. You'll get a much better result, I think, if you steam it instead. So I'm going to talk about both ways of blocking. So the first way, if you're going to get it wet, like if you use the Cupro, definitely do it this way. You're just going to get your piece wet. You can spray block it if you want. You can just kind of pin it to a board and spray it until it's damp and pat it with your hand and kind of open up those windows. Or you can soak the whole thing in room temperature water, squeeze out as much moisture as you can with your hands, wrap it up in a towel and squish it until it's pretty, it's not going to be dry, but it's just damp and it's not dripping. And then you can lay it out on a foam mat. If you don't have that, that's okay. You can just use a folded towel, lay it out on that. You can even put some little pins in to help it hold its shape while it's drying. You just want to be mindful of not stretching out your kerchief too much, because a little bit of stretch is good because it'll open up those windows, but if you stretch it more than you stretched your gauge swatch, then you're going to end up with a kerchief that might be too big, and that will be a bummer. I mean, you can still wear it around your neck, but if you're planning to wear it in your hair, that's going to be a bummer because it's going to be too wide. All right, so the other way of blocking, if you use an acrylic or something like that and you wanted to steam block it, you just lay it out on your ironing board or some folded towels. You give it some steam from above. You could just use like a regular iron. Just give it a little steam from above, and then you pat it with your hands and kind of move the piece apart a little and come back in and steam it again. So, you'll steam a little, get it to relax, pat it into the shape that you want it to be in, and then you can come back in and steam it and then let it cool down in that spot before you move it again, because that's gonna kind of solidify what shape you have your kerchief in, and it's really gonna help the lace a lot. So. All right, so now that I've talked exhaustively about blocking, I just wanted to say that I just wanted to say thank you everybody for being here. I really love doing these lives. They're really, really fun for me, and I hope to see you at my next one. Happy crocheting, everybody. Thank you.